Here's a funny comment that I received this week. Someone was watching one of my videos from about 9 months ago when I was doing the zero guard buzz cut, and they said, you know, until I watched your video, I never even thought about that being an actual hairstyle. That a buzz cut, all the same guard, same number, is an actual hairstyle. And I think we need to just camp out on that. As simple as that is, we need to camp out on that thought for just a moment. I think a lot of times the concept is, well, if you start losing your hair, then you shave it all off. But there's a journey there. It's not like most people, it's not like you suddenly just have this perfect hairline and then all of a sudden the next day you're just bald. That happens to some people in a short amount of time. Some guys are bald by the time they're 19 or 20, completely bald on top. That's rare, but it happens. But for most of us, it's somewhat of a transition. And mine's been going on. Clearly, if you watch my old videos, since I was 17, we can see that my temples had already gone back at that point. I was already Norwood by the time I was 17, and you can look at the video where I got my perm a little over 20 years ago, and you can see that undeniably. But it is interesting to think that the buzz cut is a hairstyle itself. It's not simply just the thing that you have to do if you lose too much hair. Even leading up to it, it's a legitimate hairstyle. And especially if you're not completely bald on top, even with a noticeable receding hairline, what I experimented with last year when I buzzed it all off with people at work, and then when I started with my job, I had a zero guard buzz cut, and now I haven't really touched the top at all. It's been growing out. So now, nearly a year later, this is the version of me they see. And it's not like they thought of me, they weren't paying attention to the actual hairline and the hair density the way everybody in my videos was, and the way I was making sure that everybody focused on at that time. People aren't really paying that much attention for the most part, unless you're just noticeably balding to begin with. I mean, noticeably, like Norwood 4 or severe 3 with diffuse thing or something like that, extreme. If you're not quite there yet, but you just have enough of a hairline that's going up that's kind of bothering you, no one's really thinking he's doing that because he's losing his hair. It can just be a cool thing to do, especially if you have the beard. So yeah, I mean, I think we can recognize that shaving off your hair is a great solution if you're losing your hair. The cheapest, smartest one, in my opinion. But also, it's the best way to experiment with, if you're one of those people talking about, if you're a Norwood 2 and in your 20s and you're fearing, what if I go bald? Best thing you can do is shave off your hair. Best thing you can do. Shave it off. Number 2 guard, but maybe you're better off with a 1 or a 0. Just work your way down, because that helps you face your fear. That hairstyle, and it's a legitimate hairstyle. So, I said it. A buzz cut, especially like a zero guard buzz cut, legitimate. And it kind of puts you in that situation where it even forces you to appear that you have this level of confidence, because not every man has enough confidence to buzz off his hair, whether he has hair or not. Not every man has that level of confidence. And I've had that since age 21. I've been doing this. But there are grown men who still think, I can never do that. Exactly, because not every man is able to do it. But you know what makes you able to do it? Is doing it. Is getting the clippers and putting it on the number 2, number 1, or no guard, and just doing it. That's how you know. And then watch your confidence go up. Watch your anxieties go down, because you're facing your fears and you're thinking, okay, well, I may not go bald for another 20 years. But when I do, I don't have to worry about this anymore. I think that's some of the best advice for anybody watching my channel if you haven't shaved your hair off yet, especially for the Norwood 2s out there watching my channel, the ones that are Norwood 2 and no thinning. There's so many of you, and now that I think about it, I haven't really catered enough to you. You're a very important part of my demographics, and I think if you can take this information and move forward with it, I think everyone else can benefit from that too. My channel is not simply for guys that are losing their hair. It's for guys that are showing signs of a maturing hairline and use that as a reason to think the sky is falling, or to think that their hairline is actually receding when maybe they're going to be Norwood 2 for life. But what good is that if you're going to be worrying about it your whole life? Face your fears, buzz off all your hair, That's what Nick Shell says. It'll grow back, and then you'll know, you'll kind of temporarily reinvent yourself. And yes, some people at first will say, what did you do? And then after a couple of weeks and you keep doing it, they'll come back and say, you know what? I thought it was kind of weird when you did that, but you could really pull that off pretty well. And then they get used to it and they actually prefer it. And no, it's not simply because I have the perfect shaped head. I do. I won't deny it. But it's not even about that. It's the fact that you had enough confidence to do it when so many other men don't. And it's so trendy and it's so masculine. Norwood 2, guys, shave off your hair. Face your fears now. Let it grow back. And when it does, I think you'll have a lot less fear and anxiety. I'm Nick Shell, and I'm glad you're here. Now what about those comments?